I have waited 4 weeks for this show to truly kick off, but alas, we're on the 4th episode and it's time for me to tap out. Nevertheless, I could not leave you hanging, my friends, so today we're here for the final weekly review of the Book of Boba Fett. We once again step back into the past to see how Boba Fett met up with Fennec Shand, while in the present he makes strong, bold moves as he prepares for a possible war against the Pikes. Now, before I properly start with my review for this week's The Book of Boba Fett, I want to know your thoughts on it. Have you been enjoying the show? Did you like this episode? Anything and everything down there in the comments below. And if you like movies and TV, this is the place to be, so consider clicking that subscribe button if you enjoy what you see here, so you don't miss any future conversation on your favorite movies and TV. And as always, there will be spoilers for this week's episode of Boba Fett, the 4th episode. So if you have followed my journey, these weekly reviews up until now, you know I have been growing constantly frustrated with this show. Because there's the bones of a great series in this. There's the core of a great story in this. There's a good premise. They're just not getting to it. They're padding the entire runtime of this show with some insignificant catch-up. We're seeing what he did after he escaped the Sarlacc pit, and then we're seeing what he did to get those robes, and then we're seeing what he did to get that cool weapon. This episode is 45 minutes long, and the bulk of it, 2/3 of it in fact, is more flashbacks. We're seeing Boba Fett, after the heartbreak of losing the Tusken Raiders, trying to get his ship from Jabba's palace, but then he sees these explosions back from Mandalorian episode 5 in season 1. He meets up with Fennec Shand. I like the connection that we get, that he saw this armor, this modifier, that implanted cyborg droid parts actually into people, and so that's how he saved Fennec. And that's a cool connection to the biker gang we met last week that now works for Boba. And I don't know how that didn't click in my mind last week. It just shows you how bright this whole chestnut is. But the bulk of the episode, the bulk of the episode instead, it's how did he meet up with Fennec Shand? Why did Fennec Shand stay with him? How did he get his ship back? Why did Fennec Shand stay with him after that? And I don't give a shit. I don't care to watch this part of Bobas Past, where it's just catching us up between where we first saw him back in The Mandalorian and until this point in time, and from the moment he survived, rather, up to the point where we met up with him in The Mandalorian. And it's just not interesting. No matter how he got his ship back, we know he's getting his ship back, and he went back to the Sarlacc pit to get his armor back, but guess what? His armor is not there. I wonder where his armor is. It's just insignificant drivel throughout most of this show, and it's once again frustrating. The one cool thing in the flashback that I enjoyed seeing was him just blasting the shit out of those bikers that killed the Tusken Raiders from his ship, just making sure every single one of them is dead. Not even having a fight, he just massacred those fools. That was like the biggest moment for me in this episode. And then when we come back to the present, it does some cool moves to move the story forward, but it just highlights my issues with this show. Because as soon as we move to the present, we have him going to Black Chrysanthemum and hiring him as this kind of bodyguard. So why did you let him go just last week? Like, there's no connection in between. He just goes to the bar and sees that Chrysanthemum is there and says, oh, you would like a job. Why not just say that instead of letting him go? And so he has this big meeting with all the crime lords and all the crime gang leaders in preparation for the possible war against the Pikes. But we have not seen any friction, any conflict between these gang leaders and Boba Fett. And if these past 3 episodes could have done anything in the present timeline, was seeing the distrust and the conflict that Boba Fett has with these guys, that he has to earn their trust, that they need to recognize him as the daimyo. It's just a quick, 2-minute scene that they talk over, and then they just agree to recognize him as the daimyo and work in cooperation. And it's frustrating because we've seen nothing of what is stopping all these gang leaders, these bosses, from aligning with Boba Fett. For all we know, they have not even talked with one another. So far in the show, we have not seen a single confrontation, a single conversation. We have not seen these people before. And so this moment that is supposed to signify a grand victory for Boba Fett, having gained more forces from the crime bosses of Tatooine and Mos Espa, it means nothing. Because we have no context and no information from who these guys were, what was their opposition against the Boba Fett, and how did they see him taking over the power vacuum that existed, granted thanks to the loss and the death of Jabba the Hutt. It's just incredibly frustrating, this show. Because the skeleton for a good story is there, but there's a ton of fat to be trimmed off. And then there's a ton of extra fat that adds nothing to the story, adds nothing to the characters, and the characters are not the issue. I love Temuera Morrison. I love Ming-Na Wen. I love their chemistry on screen. I love their banter, particularly in this episode that we get to see a ton more of them. But story-wise, it's absolutely insignificant, and it adds nothing to this show. So after 4 weeks, where this show has that final scene, that table scene with all the crime bosses, you should have done this at around episode 2. And again, there's a whole bunch of other issues that emerge from it because there's no context to where they stood before this conversation. We've never seen these aliens before. We've never seen what their thought is. We don't know what was their relationship like with Jabba. We don't know what their relationship was like with Fortuna. We don't know what their relationship was like with Boba Fett before this very meeting. But here we are, and apparently there was this big victory moment and this grand resolution to bring them together to face off against the Pikes and have some good opposition against them. But it means nothing. Because we know nothing about the power structure and what they bring to the table before this. Like, there's just no context for us to understand the dynamics that are at play. And so, I will still be watching the show. I will give you a season review, but this to me was the breaking point, where I'm not interested in talking about the show week to week, because number one, it barely gives me anything to talk about. With you guys, there's just not a lot of conversation for us to have around this. But more importantly, I don't want to come here every week, sit down and edit a video that is like 10 minutes long where I just shit on the show. If I'm going to talk about something week to week to week, I want to enjoy it. Not only in making these videos and for us to have a conversation, but I want to enjoy watching it. And right now, I'm just very frustrated whenever I sit down to just watch this show. But then I have to wrap my head around the things I need to talk about, the characters, the story, and what I felt watching it. And it's just not being fun. I love talking to you guys in the comments about Boba Fett, and I love that some of you, whenever you comment down there, most of you are enjoying it. And I'm incredibly jealous, and I wish I could feel the same. To me, it's just frustrating week after frustrating week after frustrating week, and I'm getting nothing out of the show. So hopefully the next 3 episodes, the final 3 episodes, prove me wrong. But as of today, I just don't want to come out here every week and shit on this show. And I find that that's what I'm doing right now. So I'll be reviewing Peacemaker week to week, because at least for now, I'm really enjoying that. That's giving me some fun times. That's giving me something to talk about. Boba Fett, I was very excited. And again, I'll still keep watching it. So we'll talk about the season as a whole when that finishes in 3 weeks' time. But as of right now, this is a final episodic review for Boba Fett. So I hope you enjoyed this journey, this very frustrating journey. I hope you can feel my pain. And we'll talk about the show again in 3 weeks. And so those are my thoughts on Boba Fett so far, on episode 4 as a whole. But I want to know what you thought. Are you enjoying this show? Did you love this episode? Anything and everything down there. And if you enjoyed what you saw here, make sure you click that subscribe button so you don't miss any future conversation on your favorite movies and TV. Thank you so much for watching. I hope to see you in 3 weeks' time when we talk about the finale, and thanks to my channel members Bruna and Stuart for making this video possible. There's a link down there for you to see if you want to become a member, if it's something for you, and I would much appreciate it. And so, until the next video, whenever that comes, love each other and love the movies.